Hello, it's Nora the Leca Queen here again for another Q&A session. I had heaps and heaps of questions for this session, so thank you. I won't go into all of them in this session. I will save some for the next session. So if your question hasn't been addressed, don't despair. I'll address it in the next session. I also have this Q&A time-stamped, as I do with all my videos. So if you're looking for a particular question, check in the description below and I have a list of all the questions that I've addressed in this section and where you can find them, and you can go directly to that question. Let's get started. First question. Nora, please give us an update on your moss wall. Do your plants spread to the back of the pole? Okay, moss wall it is. This is my Snow Queen moss wall. I have to say, because I just always have to say, this is called a Snow Queen in Australia. I know it's called an Enjoy in other places, but I call it a Snow Queen because it's sold to me as a Snow Queen. So we'll call it a Snow Queen. This is my Snow Queen moss wall that I made. And if you haven't seen the video where I do that, click on the link above and that will take you straight to it. It's doing really well considering it has been winter in Australia. There is some new growth coming through. It is coming up. There's not too much going on at the moment. I expect that this moss ball will explode when springtime comes. Does it spread to the back? I'll show you the back of my moss wall. That's the back of it. The plants do not spread to the back because that's not how I set it up. I just want those plants to populate the front, and if you can imagine that that's going to go all the way up to the top, and that is the look that I'm going for. Next question from Organically Grown is, do you always need to have a metal pole when making a moss pole? No, you do not. I make many moss poles that don't have a metal rod. This is my Syngonium Albo Fantasy, and this is the moss pole that she is on. Note, she doesn't have a metal rod going through. I put the metal rod just to help with support, especially with poles that I know are going to end up being very, very tall. You don't need it if your moss pole is short, and if it can support itself, no problem, especially if you're planting in soil. It does tend to be a lot more sturdy than if you're planting in leca. So I tend to use rods a lot because leca is not as heavy as soil is, so the moss pole tends to be slightly more unstable than for people who use soil. But even in leca, if your moss pole is short enough, you do not really need a metal rod. Pauline says, what plants do you not care for? What's my most favorite and what's my least favorite? I don't have a most favorite. I'm very fickle. I just, move from plant to plant. They're all my favorites. At the moment, I'm particularly loving my Florida Ghost. Obviously, I'm really loving my Calathea orbifolia. I'm loving some of my Hoyas. I am loving my philodendrons. So I have no favorites. I'm loving my Syngonium aurea. I might show that one to you. I'm really, really loving my Syngonium aurea. This is my little Syngonium aurea. So when I got her, it was just these two leaves. This is the latest leaf that's popped out, and oh my gosh, have you ever seen anything that amazing? A perfect half moon with some variegation there, and I've got the little one there. There's a little leaf coming there. I wonder what that's going to look like. So I'm really loving my Syngonium at the moment. Plants that I don't particularly like, I really don't like succulents. I don't get them. So yeah, there's not too many plants I don't like, but succulents are definitely at the top of my list. Sand Planet says, why should you not have your nutrient solution very high up in the reservoir? So Sand Planet is talking about my semi-hydroponic setup where I've got my pot living in my cache pot, and I put my nutrient solution in my cache pot. And that nutrient solution is only up to about that much. I don't put it all the way up to the top. Why should you not fill it all the way up to the top? Well, basically, if you do that, your roots are going to drown. There isn't going to be much oxygen in there, and your roots are eventually going to get root rot. So I put these holes in my pots, these holes there, so that my plants have got air. There's good air circulation going to those roots. They're less likely to get root rot. But if you fill that reservoir all the way to the top, you will have pretty much zero circulation going on there. And because this is not an active hydroponic setup, so that water isn't moving, those roots are eventually going to suffocate, get root rot, die, and your whole plant will die. So you do want to keep your reservoir to a manageable level. So not too little, not too much, just the right size that your roots are not suffocating. Thank you for that question. Charlene wants to know if I've noticed whether my plants grow better in the Italian Leca or in the regular Leca. The regular Leca being the normal brown balls that you're accustomed to seeing versus my Italian Leca, which is a lot darker and in most cases a bit smaller than what the balls are. And it's definitely that most of them are not round. Also, which Leca is a better price for you? Do you prefer one over the other? So this is basically an explanation of differences between the regular Leca and the Italian Leca. I've got a video where I explain these Lecas. Just click on the link above and that'll take you through to a more comprehensive explanation. But basically, I have found that the Italian Leca has got less residue. So when you've got a plant living in Leca, that clay is always sloughing off and you always get like brown residue in the reservoir, always. It doesn't matter how many times you wash it, that always happens. I find that there's less of that with the Italian Leca than with the red Leca. And the fact that the Italian Leca is not a perfect round circle, it's got very irregular shape, and different sizes. I think the roots enjoy that better. Again, this is anecdotal evidence on my part. I haven't noticed that they grow better, any different in either one of the Lecas, to be honest with you. It's just a preference in terms of the way you've got that dust settling at the bottom, but also I like the way it looks. I prefer that darker look as opposed to the red ball look, and I think my roots do better with it. But yeah, just really comes down to personal preference. Price, I think it's neither here nor there. It just depends on where you get your Leca. Thanks for the question. Dorothea would like to talk about Fittonias, and she'd like to know if you can put one in Leca, and do you go through the long method or just put it straight into Leca? Look, the short answer to this question is I really don't know because I don't have a Fittonia. I've never tried it. But I know that Fittonias are ground cover. They grow on the ground and they spread out. So a good friend of mine, a horticulturalist, told me that if you want to do that, you're probably best doing it in a shallow dish and not, a pot like this, because the roots are not going to go all the way down. So having said that, I probably would put the plant directly into Leca and not do the long method. So I'd make sure that that Leca has been soaking in a lovely rooting solution like Clonix clone solution. Make sure that those balls are really primed, and then get your Fittonia, clean it off nicely and just lay it on the top and try and cover the roots as much as you can with the Leca and keep that reservoir topped up with a solution that's really going to help those roots get going. Of course, put it in a nice humid area, give it some good light, keep it warm, and hopefully that should work out for you. I will try growing a Fittonia some point soon. I'll let you know. Next question, which is better? Round balled Leca or irregular Leca? That's a very interesting question. It's something that a lot of people in the semi-hydro world talk about. So I've got some Leca here with me. This is a lovely round ball. It is perfectly round. This one is very irregular. So what's preferred? I have heard it said that it's better to use Leca that's irregularly shaped because it's then easier for the roots to grip on to the Leca and grow better. And then it also allows, because the shape is quite irregular, if you've got two irregular Leca balls, it's very hard to form like a proper continuing shape between them because it's so irregular. So what you'll tend to have is bigger air pockets around the leca. That's again what I've heard. Is it true? I don't know. I've never, sort of tried it. I've got a mix of I've got some leca in this pot and they're all mixed up because I buy different brands of leca. So you've got the irregular shapes, you've got the round balls, and I've got them all mixed in together. So when I'm potting up a plant, you've got the round balls and you've got the irregular balls, they're all in there together. So I think in that way I'm getting the best of both worlds. So I don't, really just get caught up on the fact that it's round or irregular. I mix them together and off I go. Alexa would like to know if I have any unpopular leca tips. Unpopular leca tips. I think the first one will have to be, sometimes I do wash my leca in the house. I don't take it outside, especially when I don't have so much of it, because the thinking in the semi-hydro world is if you wash your leca in the sink, the leca dust is going to clog up your plumbing. Okay, I get it. Maybe if the leca balls are going down the drain, yes, but the dust, I don't think there's enough of it to do that damage. I don't know. Again, I'm not a plumber, take this advice at your own peril. But I'm just saying that for me, sometimes if I don't have so much leca to wash, I'll just go to the sink. I put my leca in a colander and I just whack it under the sink and it's clean. Job done. I'm not having to go outside. When I've got 50 liters of leca to wash, then I take it outside in my purpose-made basket. I've got this basket that I've made that I use for washing leca. I'll take it outside and I'll wash it out there. But generally, yeah, I do wash it inside. But making sure that the leca balls are not going down the drain. Another unpopular thing is I transition my plants from soil to leca immediately. Immediately I get them, I transition them. I don't wait. I don't give them a time to acclimate to my house or any of that stuff. The minute that plant comes from the store or from the post office, it is outside, take the soil off, and it is either going into my special sauce for the long method of soil to leca transition or going straight into leca. I do not wait. I've got a question about Calatheas, and somebody would like to know what's the best way of transitioning Calathea. Would I be doing the long method or would I be going straight into leca? I generally use the long method for transitioning plants that I think are a bit finicky, and Calatheas are definitely one of them. I have to say though, with my really, really big orbifolia, I just whacked it straight from the soil into the leca. So, it just depends on what works for you, I guess. But if you really want to be 100% sure that things are going to look a bit better, I would definitely use the long method for that. Any tips to help Calathea's transition? Tips to help Calathea's transition. So again, long method, straight to leca, whatever you prefer, but also you want to keep them warm and you do want to keep that humidity up. If you've got a humidity dome, I highly recommend using it. If you've got a humidifier, I highly recommend using it because they do want to be warm and they do want to be humid. You don't want that plant struggling as it's transitioning from the soil to the leca. So as much as you can to mollycoddle that plant, do it, and that will help get things going. But of course, you do need to give it food as well. So in your long method, you're using something like a Clonix clone solution. So the plant is being fed, and once you're past that transition period, you're giving it a good hydroponic nutrient like foliage focus or whatever you've got available in your country. Someone would like me to do a quick tutorial on how you can propagate a plant directly in leca. Okay, I will do that. Not in this video because it'll take a bit of time, but I'm going to do that for you and I'll have that available for you as soon as I can. Someone would like to know what nutrients are available to use during the long method or the transition period in the United States. This is a question I get a lot and it's really, really difficult. I cannot in good conscience recommend something like a nutrient that I haven't used before. So anybody in the United States, if you know of a nutrient that you're using that has worked well for you for the long method, please let me know in the comments below so I can let other people know. But having said that, I do know some people have been able to get a Clonix clone solution in the United States on Amazon. If I can find that, I'll put that link in the description below. But in the meantime, growth technology products are on their way to you in the United States. I will let you know as soon as I know when they land. And when I say they're on their way, they have been shipped from Australia and are actually coming to the United States. So they will be available to you. You will be able to get Clonix Clone Solution. You will be able to get Foliage Focus. And oh my, that will be a day that changes your lives, guys, because you will be able to see the magic that those nutrients can do for your plants and how easy it's going to be for you to mix up your nutrient solutions for semi-hydroponics instead of using bottle A, bottle B, bottle C, and I don't know how many bottles you guys use to make your solution. But watch this space. I will let you know when that happens. Captain Inkheart has a very interesting question. The captain says, how do you keep indoor plants interesting? I know for me, I lose interest in my plants for a while, but then eventually get back to them. Is it the same for you? Yeah, in some ways it is, but in other ways it's not. I think because my collection is so large now, I have no choice but to always be switched on, because if I'm not taking care of them, bad things are going to happen and I'm going to be very sad. But for me, plants are also a mindfulness thing. So I derive great joy and I come to my happy place when I'm taking care of my plants. So it's not just about having plants for the sake of having plants or having plants for the sake of having a YouTube channel. I use them to ground myself. I'm at my happiest when I'm taking care of my plants. And I'm actually at my happiest when I'm taking care of my plants and I am not making content. I find that making content actually gets in the way of me interacting really nicely with my plants on an intimate level. So yeah, no, I haven't really had that issue, although I do fall out of love with certain plants. So I'll have a plant, I was really excited about it, and then I'm just like, yeah, about it after a while, and then yeah, probably neglect it for a bit, and then I'll feel bad, and then I'll perk it up a bit, or I'll give it away, which is invariably what almost ends up happening. But I think if you just think about why you got into indoor plants, why you love indoor plants, and that will always spur you ahead. But also, plants are like children, you know, they're like children who never grow up. They will never learn how to dress themselves, never. And because we've got these plants from outside, we've taken them out of their natural spot where they are in a position to take care of themselves. We've brought them into our environment. We've brought them into our homes. We have a duty of care to take care of them. You know, if I don't water the plant, it's not going to get water from anywhere else because it's in the house. So I do feel a bit bad if I'm not doing my best for my plants. So sorry, I did rant on a little bit there, but that was a really interesting question. Thank you. Organically Grown would like to know, when you mix your special sauce, do you mix it for when you need it, or do you mix it up as batches, and how long do you keep it for? When I'm mixing up any of my nutrients, so whether it's the special sauce or my foliage focus for my foliage plants or my flower focus for my Hoyas, I mix up batches. I've got actually containers that are labeled for each nutrient. I'll show them to you. So these are my 5-liter containers. This one is for my special sauce. This one is for my foliage focus, and this one is for my flower focus. So these are 5-liter containers. I mix them up. I've just mixed up some batches this morning. So these are all full, and I'll keep these for, you know, however long I need them. Because I have so many plants, they don't last very long. And while I'm not using them, I keep these in a dark area just to make sure that the nutrients are not being degraded by light, and then I'll use them when I need them. I really couldn't tell you how long you can keep them. They would definitely keep for a number of weeks. I don't think that would be an issue, but I'm pretty sure you'd get you'd use up the nutrient and you'll have to use more. So maybe if you don't have that many plants, maybe not a 5-liter container for you. So maybe 2 liters or 1 liter or something. So you know that you've got enough that you're not having to keep it for like half a year or something pre-mixed, but you've got enough to tidy you over for a few weeks. And what that means is, you know, as you're going about your day, if you find that something is running a bit low, you can just top it up without having to think, oh gosh, I need to take everything out, mix up my batches and all the rest of this. So just make some batches, keep them in a nice, cool spot out of the light, and they should keep and be just fine. So Dolly says that she's bought some moss poles from the store because she can't make her own. And she finds that, you know, when I'm watering my moss pole, I get a bottle and I tip it upside down and the moss pole's getting watered. So Dolly finds that she can't really do that with the store-bought ones because they've got a hole in the middle because it's a pipe, which is problematic, obviously. So she'd like to know if I can suggest anything to make the store-bought moss poles work. That is a really difficult one, Dolly. What I would appreciate is maybe if you jumped onto my Instagram and sent me a picture of your moss pole. I'm finding it a bit hard to visualize. And then it's also about what material is your moss pole made out of, because some of those moss poles that I've seen sold in the stores, the water just runs off and it just won't hold like sphagnum moss will. So send me a photo and then I might be able to give you a more directed answer. Thanks, Dolly. Does switching from soil to leca reduce the chances of root rot for you? If so, do you still get root rot and do you know how? I've definitely found that moving from soil to leca has reduced the chance of root rot, and that's because by the time the plant is used to living in leca, those are water roots. They're used to living in a hydroponic environment. They're used to living with water, and the plant only takes up what it needs. But having said that, you've got your reservoir at a certain level. You're not keeping it so high as we discussed before. So if you don't do that, your plant will get root rot. And yes, I have had root rot when my plants are living in leca. And one of the times I did get root rot was when I was moving house, and I actually topped up my reservoirs more than I normally would because I knew I wouldn't have a chance to take care of my plants, and that was a mistake. I lost a lot of my alocasia stock because they all just got root rot, and alocasias are very notorious for being finicky and just going, yeah, I don't like this, and off they go. So I do get root rot if you're not taking care of the levels in your reservoir. But living in hydroponics has certainly reduced that risk. Very interesting question from Aesthetic UK. And they say, what's the weirdest plant that you've ever grown? I have not grown any weird plants. You say you've got a pineapple living in leca. That is epic. No, I don't have any weird plants at the moment. I do have a space situation, so everything that I've got is highly curated, and when I get more space, I'd certainly love to try growing a pineapple in leca. That sounds like a right awesome challenge. Thanks for that thought. If you could travel anywhere in the world for a house plant, where would you go, and what plant would you just have to take home? I don't know. I'm absolutely stumped. I actually spent some time researching this question and I couldn't. There are just way too many beautiful things out there. But having said that, maybe I would go to Hawaii and grab a fabulous giant Hawaiian pothos. You know, I'm a simple girl at heart, and pothos is my OG plant. I might just go grab a pothos, and going to Hawaii would not be a bad thing either. So thank you for giving me those holiday vibes, Real Kitchen Diva White. I might meet you in Hawaii. Someone wants to know if I'm able to do active hydroponics yet. active hydroponics being that the nutrient solution is not stagnant, it's moving with the aid of a pump or something. So you've got pumps and things, and your nutrient solution is moving and it's active. The water is active as opposed to passive, which is what I'm doing at the moment. Yes, I do have plans to do active hydroponics, but I will leave it there. I don't want to tell you all my secrets. I don't want to tell you everything I've got in store for you guys, but I'm just going to say, watch this space because spring is coming and I have heaps of projects up my sleeve. And one of them might be something to do with active hydroponics. So watch this space. Have you ever tried putting different types of plants up on one moss pole? So you can have maybe a marble queen mixed in with a snow queen, mixed in with a golden ivy, and so on. No, I haven't tried that. And the reason I haven't is because I know these plants grow at different rates. And I know that out of all these pothoses, the golden ivy is going to take over. Golden ivy always wins out of, it's the fastest growing as far as I can tell. I could be wrong, but that's what I've seen in my experience. So that moss pole is going to be very weird. If I have a moss pole with my pothos, I'll have my snow queen down here, I'll have my marble queen here, and I'll have the golden ivy all the way up to the ceiling while the snow queen's still down there. So it'll look a bit funny. So for pothos, no, I definitely would not do that. But I do have, again, some tricks up my sleeve coming up to you soon where I'm mixing different types of plants together, creating something magical. So watch this space. Syngoniums. Does your Syngonium Three Kings grow slowly for you? Very interesting question. And the answer to that is maybe. This is my Syngonium Three Kings. It's not doing too badly. Does it grow slowly? Maybe. It's not as fast growing as my mojito, but you know, she's growing. But yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't know. It's not so pronounced that she's not growing as fast. She could grow faster, but yeah, I love her nonetheless. Thank you very much for watching, and please don't forget to put up your questions for the next Q&A. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.